So Darren, I was going to have a chat with you about tagging resources in SharePoint. So firstly, why should we do it? We've got folder structures. Why should we tag? Search is great anyway in SharePoint. I can search for a file, it'll look inside the contents, it'll look at the title of those documents. Why should we tag? Why is that a good practice?
Well, you're right, Tony, that search is already very good in SharePoint. So at the moment, you can search for a document based on its title. You can even search inside the body of the document for keywords if it's an Office document or a PDF. So that's already very good. But what you find is that as people use search more and more and more, and it becomes the main way that they find content, especially content they haven't found before, then by adding extra dimensions to the data that you've got, which is searchable, you can find things in a better way. You can get better search results. You can be more specific in what you're searching for. You can say, well, I'm looking for Key Stage 3 resources for French, where the topic is the French Revolution or whatever. And of course, what's useful about that is if you've tagged those things, you can then find them across the curriculum. So you might find some French resources about that, but you might also find it in history. And you never know, you might find something in maths and you think, what's this? French Revolution, maths? But it could happen. So if people are tagging these things, then it's useful and it makes your searches better. The other thing, of course, is that once you're inside the library, so you're roughly in the right area, you found the place, you can then pivot the views that you have, so you can view by topic and get that grouped view. You can view by key stage, by year, and so on. You can view by exam board if that's something that you've tagged as well. And different organizations have different things which are important to them. So obviously you're going to have some standard columns for tagging, like key stage and year and topic. But if within your school, your organization, there are some things that are more important to you, additional dimensions, which strategically are things that you care about, then you can choose to tag by that as well. So, you might, for example, have a 21st century learning strategy. And so you need to particularly tag by those competencies when you're searching for resources. You might work things in terms of levels. For your differentiation, you might have kind of a beginners, advanced kind of thing. That could be another sort of standard dimension that you use. Yeah. Anything at all, really. And it doesn't just have to be the teaching and learning resources. You could also have categories for the kind of school business stuff that you can tag by. And it's all about having those extra dimensions of data that you can use potentially to search.
Because I guess it's going to scale up over time. These libraries are going to grow massive, over the years. And when you're searching for stuff, you don't want all that irrelevant stuff to appear in that search. You don't want it to be clouded by that. So I guess if you can search by more than one criteria, you can sort of narrow it down a bit. But yeah, I come from an old school SharePoint background where metadata tagging was really pushed. It was frowned upon if you use folders. Now I think that's changed a bit. There's people using folders in SharePoint. Metadata, as you've said, is still quite important. So should we use one or the other? Do you have to pick one? Should we just use metadata or just use folders? When should we use them and when shouldn't we use them?
So folders are fine, and actually folders and tagging work really well together. So there's nothing wrong with using folders. People are used to using folders, it's comfortable. And even if you've got these really kind of dynamic ways of searching and tagging content, which is useful, you essentially still need to have an initial structure that you can put things in, and folders give you a very good way of doing that. But then you're not limited to that, because you can break out of that. You can transcend those folders, and literally within the views, if you've got a view called by topic, when you get back those resources, you then tell it not to show you the folders, so the folders fall away and you just get kind of the loose documents, but now grouped by topic or grouped by key stage. So you can actually do things in both ways.
So we can get the benefits of both, then I guess. But we could go crazy with the tagging. We could tag a document with 100 different tags. At what point do you stop and say, actually, this is enough tags. I'm actually creating more work for myself tagging these documents.
So I think my rule of thumb would be you stop tagging, you stop adding tags when you see that they're not going to be used or useful. So if you know that you're going to be searching for particular dimensions of the data, whether that's year or topic or subject or exam board, then it's worth tagging those things. It's worth creating that tag column, and it's worth doing the work, which is actually quite easy now because tagging's easy. You can fill down and select a whole bunch of documents at the same time. So it's not as bad as it was. And of course, if you set some rules up in advance, you can actually get some auto tagging done. So in our product, for example, you don't need to fill in tags for key stage and year or subject because we just do it automatically. So I think usually if I'm seeing more than kind of 2 or 3 additional tags in the main view, I think that's probably too much. I know some schools I've worked with have gone a bit crazy, and they've created 10 mandatory columns. So every time you uploaded or created a resource, you had to tag all those columns before anybody else could even see the document. I don't think that's the way to go. I think you need to think about what's going to be useful. And the more you search, that's then going to feed in to your understanding of what you need to tag.
I'm not a fan of the mandatory fields. I think back in the old days of SharePoint, that was great. It forced you to tag your documents when you uploaded them. But search is so good now that actually making stuff mandatory creates more admin work. You have to check in your documents, you have to publish them. Sometimes they don't appear for people unless you've filled in all the data. Web apps don't always work. So I find it just adds extra admin work and puts people off and isn't great for user adoption.
Yeah, there's a place for mandatory. I mean, some list items if you're doing that sort of thing, but for documents, I can't find a real reason to make anything mandatory. People should use it because they want to use it and because it's useful to them. And if it's not useful and if people aren't using it, then it shouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, that's a good summary. I think what we've discovered is tagging is good, it's good practice, but you don't have to go crazy with it. Still use your folders.